Hey guys, what's up? How's it going? Just finished watching AEW's Full Gear. Now, I've mentioned before that, you know, I'm not always keen on ordering the pay per view because it really depends on the match lineup that's going to be interesting. And, my interest was very minimal in this. I'll be honest, I didn't really know the full match card. The biggest thing that I knew was going to be the MJF John Moxley, and I pretty much ordered it just to see that match. But looking at the card, there were some interesting matches, and I ended up being interested in more than just that one. One of the biggest ones, and I'm going to start not with the championship match, but I'm going to start with Soraya versus Dr. Britt Baker. And the reason I'm starting with that one is because it's just very significant because Saraya is back wrestling after 5 years. And while the match wasn't great, which, listen, it's very expected. I mean, she hasn't wrestled in 5 years. It's going to be ring rust. She has to be careful. She even said her doctor told her to be careful. Like, do one match, maybe do one a couple weeks later. Like, don't do one every Wednesday. Take your time easing yourself back into it. So even though the match was not, huge or 5 or 10 star, however you're going to rate the match, it was still a good match, but it was just very significant just seeing her and clearly seeing how emotional she was. I don't know if you caught it, but she did roll over to Britt Baker. I'm assuming to tell her thank you, and the camera cut away from it because you can clearly see she rolled back over to talk to her. And it's a big deal. I mean, we're seeing all these guys come back from injuries that they thought they never could, and there's so many examples. I mean, look at Sting, and you see how they're using him, so they might do the same thing with Soraya. Maybe not as limited as they use Sting, but somewhere along those lines. Look at Brian Danielson. Look how long it took him to come back. Then he had another concussion, took a little while to come back, but he still came back. Look at Edge. Look at Christian. I mean, Stone Cold came back. So a lot of these guys that you thought just weren't going to come back, they came back. Edge had his return at the Royal Rumble a few years ago. Now it probably looks like one of the ones that you're going to keep your eye on is Adam Cole because he hasn't been back in a while. And they're saying that the concussion that he suffered was very significant. So congratulations to Soraya on coming back. Very interested to see what she's going to do because their women's division to me needs help. I said before, I am not a faithful watcher of AEW. I am very passive. I probably shouldn't even been doing, a review on the pay per view because I don't know all the history leading up to the matches. But that is part of the problem with AEW is that at least for me, you're not giving me what's different, and you've pretty much become WWE light and pissing off your talent who helped get AEW off the ground. You don't see a lot of them anymore. And if you do, it's sparingly. And I think another part of the problem is that they have all these WWE guys and they don't know what to do with them. One of them being Keith Lee. So, it's hard to be super enthusiastic because I feel like I'm seeing the same thing at WWE. There might be a little more excitement into the matches as far as there's more false finishes, but when you do that in every single match, it gets boring. And I understand now because I listen to JR's podcast, I listen to Bruce Pritchard's podcast, and a common theme, if you really listen to them, a common theme is if you don't want to repeat something that was done in the other match. And there was a lot of things that were repeated throughout this match. I don't know how many guys were doing swantons, how many guys do the super kicks. I don't think the referees were taking out too much in this match. I know two were just taking out the championship match. The outside interference, the table, it's like, the jump, it's like we just saw that in the last two matches, and I'm seeing it again. And I understand what they mean. And, what gets me too is like, you brought in guys like Mark Henry and the Big Show and and Regal for their wrestling mind experience to help the company, and I'm not really seeing where their old school advice is seeping through. Now, listen, I go through this a lot at work about old school versus new school, that stuff. I'm not saying old school should completely be disregarded, but I understand now when they talk about how you don't let the match breathe and you're just doing the same thing over and over that the previous match did or you did last week. I'm seeing what they're saying in that, and maybe that's what's ruining it for me. But it is what it is, and I just think the women's division, at least now, needs a lot of help. I think Soraya can do that. I mean, the biggest star we all know in the women's division is Britt Baker. Britt Baker, but she can't carry that by herself. She needs support. And I'm sorry, the Jade K, whatever hell you say her name, I'm sorry. While I dug the Thundercat, Shatara ring attire because I love Thundercats. Thundercats was on when I was a little kid. I still watch it on Hulu, believe it or not. The original, not the new one that they tried to do in, I don't know, 2011 or 12. That one sucked. But the original Thundercats, big fan of it, love it. Mum-Ra was my favorite character. As much as I appreciate the little throwback that she had, the match to me was boring. I was in the kitchen, in and out, just doing other stuff because the women's division sucks. It just sucks. And I'm hoping that Soraya can give it a boost because, again, Britt Baker can't carry it by herself. And for God's sakes, would they get rid of the stupid interim crap? Thunder Rosa can't defend the title. And I'm pretty sure it's been more than 2 months now. I think we're going on 3 months, maybe 4 months. Clearly, she's not healthy to do it. Why are we doing this stupid? Because to me, you're telling me I'm just a placeholder. I'm not the real champion. It's stupid. Take the title off her, just like you did with CM Punk. Take the title off her and hold a tournament or give it to Jade Hager, who just won the match. And even that match, to me, was a little bit boring until it got to the end. And I don't really find Toni Storm that interesting. I thought she was pretty dull in WWE. I think she's pretty dull here in AEW. So there needs to be some injection of excitement to me in the AEW women's division because it just sucks. It just does. And, WWE's women's division, some of the excitement has come down a little bit because, it's not at full star power. Alexa Bliss is sort of, going through the waters, but, you got Bayley back. I think once you get Becky back, I think when you get Charlotte back, I think we get the full roster back. If Sasha, especially if Sasha and Naomi come back, you're going to just have a lot of energy pumping through that women's division right now. And I think that is the energy that AEW needs. How they get it, better storyline, more importance on the titles. I feel like they don't give their titles real importance. So, and I'm going to jump into that when I talk about the next match. But anyway, congratulations to Soraya. I'm very happy she came back. It was a long road getting back, and she did. I'm quite sure she drew inspiration from Edge. I even remember when she had to announce her retirement. I remember she thanked Edge because Edge showed that there was life after wrestling. There was something you could do because, Edge was doing a lot of acting. I think he was in, the Vikings or something like that, but he was doing some stuff on Sci-Fi. He was in the Flash on the CW on that show. He did appearance on that. So, but she bounced back. She kept fighting. She saw Daniel come back, Sting come back, Christian come back, and I'm sure in her mind she's like, "Why the hell can't I come back?" So, good for her. I already talked about the Jamie Hayter Toni Storm match. Like I said again, it's just not a lot of excitement, and just the whole interim thing is just stupid. Just get rid of it. Thunder Rosa's not coming back. And if she does come back, fine, but just in the future, just drop it. So the Acclaim are the tag team champions. So if the Acclaim gets hurt, or if one of them gets hurt, what do? You get one of the partners a new one, and you say, okay, now they're interim tag team because that's not the real Acclaim. It's just stupid. But speaking of the Acclaim versus Swerve and Glory, Keith Lee is for Strickland. I'm not really surprised that they lost the match. I did see last week that they were already teasing that there was going to be a breakup. Um, Again, Keith Lee is somebody I think AEW doesn't know what to do with. I don't really think they knew what to do with Swerve either, and that's why they put them together. Again, WWE did that all the time. You have two guys who aren't doing anything, you don't know what to do with them, stick them together with a tag team and see what happens. And I think that's what they did with these two, and AEW has no idea how to use them. To me, Keith Lee had his best success in NXT. Unfortunately, he came up to the main roster at the wrong time when Vince was there, and Vince was giving him stupid shit. And Tony Khan doesn't know what to do with Keith Lee. I'm not saying Keith Lee is sitting on his ass and not pitching ideas. I'm quite sure he is. Maybe Tony's just not getting it. Again, with Swerve, Triple H knows what to do with Swerve. I don't think Tony Khan knows exactly what to do. And I think that is a big problem with AEW right now, is that you have a bloated roster that you do not know what to do with a huge chunk of them. But that being said, again, it was the typical match that I think you've seen before that just got exciting towards the end. I like the Acclaim. I think that their act is very hot. A phrase of "scissor me daddy," I'm not saying it's up there with the what chance or the suck it chance, but it's definitely caught on. The crowd loves it. They're selling merchandise on it, so good for them. Like I said, I like them as a tag team. I like the rap that they do when they come out. I like the music that they come out. I like the presentation of them. I think it's great. Unfortunately, I think that their tag team gets watered down because of the next match I'm going to talk about, which is this trios tag team championship match, which again is stupid. So you have your tag team and now you have your trio tag team. It's stupid. You got too many belts, and again, it has been proven that you can have a group of three who can be all champions. Freebird rule. The New Day has proven that already. So why are we creating these trios because you have a three-man team? It just doesn't make sense. And to me, you are now taking away from the Acclaim because those belts were around first. It's just ridiculous. But I'm glad the Acclaim won. I think it was already, you already knew that was going to happen. The Sting and Darby Allin match with Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. I mean, I think that was more a nostalgia thing. I mean, you heard the crowd chanting TNA with Sting and Jeff Jarrett were in the ring together. I like Sting. I like Darby Allin, but even Darby Allin is somebody who seems to be fading to the wayside. Due to these other guys that are coming in, and guys like Darby and Sammy and um, Jungle Boy should and Wardlow should be, your faces of your company that you are pushing to the top right now, and we're not seeing that. I mean, I'll get to MJF later, but MJF, is now being put on that pedestal where he really should be. And guys like Darby Allin should be right underneath him. Like Darby should be somebody who may dethrone him. I don't know, but I think we need to take a step back from some of the WWE guys. Like I said, I'm glad they're there. I'm glad they got Cesaro. I'm glad they got Bryan Danielson. I'm glad they got John Moxley. I'm glad they got Chris Jericho. But, I think it's time to sort of shuffle them to the back a little bit, or maybe put them more in the mid card and start, really featuring your guys. So going back to talk about the trio match, um, I am glad that Death Triangle won. I think it would have been too easy to give the titles back to the Elite. Um, Now, I didn't realize that this was a best of seven. I don't know if that was the story going into the match or they announced it afterwards. But I think the Death Triangle should win the series. Um, I don't think the Elite needs to win all the time, and to me, that was happening a lot when I don't think they should have been. So And also, if you want to give these titles more meaning, let the Death Triangle hold on to them for a while. But your other issue is that who are you gonna be defending these titles against after the Elite? You had House of Black. I don't even know if Dark Order's still around. I guess they are. So outside of those guys, okay, I guess you got Best Friends. But after a while, you kind of got to run into the same boring situation. Hmm, I don't know, but I just think the whole concept of the trio thing is stupid. But you know, I think overall the Death Triangle should win it. They opened the pay per view with Jungle Boy versus Luchasaurus. I thought that was a good match. To me, that is their best story that they have going in AEW. Now, I don't know if they're finally going to get to the match with Christian and Jungle Boy. Um, Now, while it is the best storyline, it's how are you going to keep that fresh? I know Christian is hurt right now, but at some point you got to get to the ending before people start to lose interest in it. I don't think people have lost interest yet, but I think you need to get ready to put a cap on this pretty soon before we get to that point. But I thought the match was good. I thought it was a good way to open the match. Open the show. I enjoyed it. Like I said, that was one of the reasons why I ended up getting it after I really learned what was going on the card, besides the ending match. I touched on the Jade Cargill match. Again, I just find her boring. This match was pretty good. The Fatal 4-Way match for the Ring of Honor Championship. I thought that was pretty good. I'm a little disappointed that Jericho won. I really thought Sammy should have won, and I know people really hate Sammy. Although to me, he was getting some cheers when he was going against Jericho. But Sammy again, when are we going to start elevating Sammy to to being that person? Now I know he was the TNT Championship at the time, or the TBS, whatever it got called, whatever he was. But I feel like they played hot potato with that belt with him and Scorpio Sky, and I think putting this on him and maybe letting him sort of be the star, because he's lost in the pool of all the talent that's on AEW right now. And like I had said before, if you're gonna have Ring of Honor, keep it separate. I don't want to see Ring of Honor championships being defended on AEW, but that's what they're doing. But why don't you let Sammy take the belt and let Sammy be the face of that brand? And eventually, when he's done with that, let him come back up to AEW and start building him to get to the AEW championship. But guys like Darby and guys like Sammy, I think, are just being underutilized. The match with Samoa Joe, Wardlow, and Powerhouse, that was okay. To be honest, I am sort of glad that Samoa Joe won. I would have preferred if he had choked out Wardlow, but Wardlow is somebody else who I think AEW has gotten to a certain point very well, but I feel like they don't know what to do afterwards. Even Wardlow has said he felt AEW had dropped the ball with him and his character, and I just feel like they're gonna get to a point. It's like, fuck, what do we do with this guy? That's not repetitive, because now do you put him to be the opponent for MJF, and is he the one who dethrones MJF when we get to that point? I just see like they just don't know what to do with him after a while. I can just tell. And lastly is the championship match with MJF and Jon Moxley. Now, I'll admit, in the beginning, I wasn't too crazy about this because it was supposed to be MJF and CM Punk. That was the story they were going with, and CM Punk was an asshole, and then that fell to the wayside, and they had to put this together with Jon Moxley. I thought the match was good. I would have actually preferred that Moxley won, because the firm would have came and cost MJF the title. I know they attacked him, I don't know, 2 weeks ago or something like that. I don't know if he ever got his revenge for that. I know in some promo he said he wasn't paying attention to it, but maybe after what we just saw, maybe that was part of the plan this whole time. I don't know. but I think they had to do the turn with MJF. I'm sorry, with William Regal, because I think it would have been hard for us to believe that MJF would have beaten Moxley clean. There had to be some, I can't really think of the word shenanigans. There had to be some shenanigans going on to have MJF beat Moxley. And the reason I'm okay with it is because I think they dropped the ball with the whole Blackpool Combat Club. And I think it fell to the side when Moxley became champion because, Moxley's getting attacked, but where's the Blackpool to back him up? And then Bryan Danielson was out for a while with his issues. And I just feel like, in a way, it just got convoluted. And I just feel like they just lost interest in the whole thing. And now you're pulling Regal away from it. So what happens? Do the four of them continue together? Do they not? That's like the weird part. It just feels like with AEW, with certain things, it's a lot of stop and start. Not necessarily because somebody just gets hurt. It's just not interesting. And I think they sensed that, and they just pulled the plug on it. And the Blackpool feels like they started it, and now they're stopping it, and now it just feels like it's just in limbo. But how they told the story of MJF and Regal makes sense on how they did it. So I give them credit for that. I thought the match was great. I did like it. I thought I wasn't going to, because it's like you were expecting it to be CM Punk because that's what they were building to with CM Punk. But I think MJF is going to be a great champion. MJF to me is better as a heel. And obviously he's going to go back to being a heel. I shouldn't say obviously, but it looks like that's what they're going to do. The face thing to me doesn't work with him. And there are guys who are just better at being heels. I think one of the best examples really is like The Miz. Because they tried to make The Miz a face, 2-3 years ago? And it was just terrible. You don't cheer for The Miz. He is a heel. He is better it just doesn't work with him. Just like Triple H doesn't work as a babyface. He works as a heel much better. To me, AJ Styles is a better babyface than he is a heel. To me, Finn Balor is a better babyface than a heel. Because you like Finn Balor so much, to me, it just doesn't fit him being a heel. Edge, to me, is better as a heel than a face. Randy Orton is better as a heel than he is a babyface. Now, The Undertaker, to me, was better as a face than a heel. And MJF is that character that is better as a heel than a babyface. Just like TNA, when they tried to turn Sting heel, it just didn't work. Sting's not a heel. And you would say, well, listen, Hogan, look what they did with Hogan. That was a different time and it worked. It's like making Goldberg a heel. Actually, I don't think Goldberg was ever a heel in his career. So I'm glad they're not going to keep going on this trajectory of making MJF a face. It just doesn't work. And I'm pretty sure on Wednesday he's going to go back to being a full-blown heel. Pretty sure. Because that's what fits him. And I will say TNA. AEW has to treat their championships like they treated the women's title. To me, that was probably the title they gave the most meaning to. Because Britt Baker was the champion, and Britt Baker beat everybody until she was finally dethroned. I don't remember who dethroned her. I think you could say the same thing with Jericho when he was AEW. He was the first AEW champion, and I believe it was Moxley that beat him for the first reign. Yes, Jericho held on to it, but I don't think it was special because it wasn't between two AEW guys. It was between two WWE guys. I think if maybe Sammy defeated him or Jungle Boy did it, that's it because you had that's your homegrown talent that took that title, and then whoever did it, they should have had a really significant run where it was hard to beat them. And right now, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's been an AEW original who has been AEW champion. And I'm going to look that up right now because the first, well, okay, I take that back. Adam Page and I guess we'll throw Omega in there. I guess. So I take that back. You have. But how significant were their reigns? Did you really like Omega's reign? Because I didn't. And did you feel Adam Page got the right backing as being the champion before they went back to a WWE guy? So I'm hoping that MJF they'll use MJF as the guy to really give that meaning and support to the championship. Because look what WWE did with Roman. Whoever beats Roman, that's going to be a big fucking deal. And when that person takes a championship, you want it to be a big fucking deal. So whoever ended Britt Baker's reign, that was a big deal. I don't think they're doing that with their AEW title. As much as I like Moxley, it doesn't just feel like that big deal. But MJF, I think he can make it a big deal if they allow him to. I think he can. So, in closing, Full Gear wasn't what wasn't too horrible, but I said this before. The pay-per-views are way too long. 5 hours is a long time. And then you can tell that the crowd just gets burned out because they really weren't that hot for first of all, they weren't that hot for the women's matches. Okay. At all. With the exception of maybe Soraya. But the other ones, they were pretty much flat. And, for some of the other matches, they really didn't come alive until, towards the end when you got into the false finishes. The matches are too long. The show started at 7. Well, really, the main pay-per-view started at 8. But if you watch the earlier matches, it started at 7. Because if you bought it on Bleacher like I did, Bleacher tells you this stuff starts at 7, and it went off, just before midnight. That's too long. And yes, it's a great thing that they do the pay-per-views on a Saturday. I can tell you, I'm gonna be watching on damn Sunday. But it's a great thing to do it on Saturday, but it's too fucking long. And I'll start messing on my phone. I'll start going on my computer. I'll just start doing something else because I'm losing my attention span because it's too fucking long. Learn from WrestleMania. Now they got WrestleMania in 2 nights, and it's not as long. And I understand you want to give your matches time to breathe because that was the complaint, like with WrestleMania, is that you're not letting us see what we really want to see because you're cramped for time. But it's too long, Tony Khan. Too long. You got to shave it, or make it a 2-night event. Do Saturday and Sunday, or do Friday and Saturday. I mean, it's getting fucking cold now. You're not gonna have people out. Well, no, you'll still have people out, but I don't know. Just figure it the fuck out. Okay, just let's stop making your pay-per-view so long. But anyway, hopefully you guys, for those of you who ordered Full Gear, hopefully you enjoyed it. And I think really the only reason why you're gonna be watching Dynamite is to get the explanation from Regal and to see how they do this reign with MJF. And let's hope they don't drop the ball. But I'm going to drop some more videos pretty soon. Actually going to record another one right after this one, talking about Survivor Series. So, again, hopefully you enjoy AEW Full Gear. And again, as I always say, let me know if you agree with my thoughts and my comments.